Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Nedarim Nun Beis. We begin at the Mishnah on Aleph Amud Beis 2 from the bottom. We continue speaking about various Lashonos pertaining to Nedarim. Says the Mishnah, Hanoi der min hachalav. A fellow makes a neder against drinking milk. Mutar b'kum. He can partake in kum. Kum was a milk derivative, this sort of watery substance which we call whey, W-A-G-Y. So when they produce cheese, we have this milk runoff, this watery milk runoff, which is called kum, which no longer is classified as milk, and therefore not included in the neder against milk. That is Shitas Tanakama. Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, it is included, as the Gemara will explain, because in Asrei Rabbi Yossi, in Rabbi Yossi's community, they did refer to kum as kuma de chalava. They related it to its father source, to the milk. So it's a milky residue, in which case it's included in the neder against milk. Now, if he made a neder min hakum from whey, mutar b'chalav. In this case, all agree. That's our gersa in the Mishnah. The Ran has a different gersa, but in our Mishnah, all agree that chalav, original milk, is not included in kum. Kum is a derivative of milk, but milk is not derived from kum. So neder against kum does not include milk as well. Abashol Eimer, pertaining to cheese, which according to the Ran was typically salted. So a fellow who makes a general neder against cheese without specifying which one, hanoider min agvina, asher b'mei melucha, ubein tefillah. He may not eat any form of cheese, whether salted or unsalted. Hanoider min abasar, a neder to keep away from meat, includes actual meat, but not gravy. Mutar b'haroitev, he can partake in juice, in gravy. Uba kifa. Kifa is this crushed, these little meat fibers that you'll find stuck to the bottom of the pot. Only an actual piece of meat is included in the word basar, but not these derivatives or residues. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Rabbi Yehuda says no. When a fellow says, I'm keeping away from basar, it means basar or anything that has the taste or residue of basar in it. Rabbi Yehuda, I'll prove my point. Masav asar alein Rabbi Tarfon. In fact, it so happens that once we had a neder against basar, and Rabbi Tarfon applied a iser in the following case. Bebeitzim shenis bashlu imoy. So we had a piece of meat which was asur to us by way of neder, and there were some eggs cooked together with it, which absorbed some of that flavor coming of that meat. And he said, just as the meat is asur, likewise any flavors emanating and absorbed into the eggs are asur as well. Apparently, a neder against basar includes not only the actual piece of meat, but also all of its flavors and derivatives. Amr loy the Chachamim, who disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda, Tanakama, who said that roitev and kifa are not included in basar, they said, look, let us explain what happened. You know why Rabbi Tarfon included the beitzim in the iser? Kein hadavar. In fact, that's exactly what happened. But let us explain, Amosai, when does this rule apply? When do we say that aside from the actual basar being asur, all its derivatives, all its extractions, all of its flavors are included as well? Bizman sheyoymar basar ze alai. Oh, he points to a piece of meat, a specific piece of meat, and he says, this slab of meat is asur to me. In this case, it's so different. Because, as the Ran explains, on the third line from the top, the kivan da amar ze, once he points and he says that this piece of meat, you know what he's doing? Shavya nafshei chaticha d'isur. It's as though he considered that item upon himself something which is actually asur, in all its forms and variations, extractions and flavors. V'asur b'yetz mimenu, in which case it includes anything that is produced, anything which emanates from that piece of meat as well. But that's not typical. When he says, I'm keeping away from basar in general. Basar in general means a proper piece of meat. eaten like you eat a piece of meat, rather than just extractions and flavors. Sha'noidim Radavar, says the Mishnah, because in fact, when a person makes a neder from a specific thing, Dover Zeh is asur to me. In this case, it carries a whole new set of ramifications. And that gets mixed into something else, like in this case, where the meat flavor was absorbed into these eggs. Then we have a problem. And we have to discern whether the meat flavor is detectable, whether it's discernible in the other item. If it's more than a 60th and not batal. If the meat flavor is sufficient to contribute a discernible flavor into the other item, asur, then the other item assumes the isser of the piece of meat. Another example is tarayvis, a mixture. You have the actual item of isser getting mixed into something else. So here it's not derivatives or extractions. It's the actual, let's say, wine, which is asur on you, which got mixed into something else. Here again, we follow the bittul formula. So if it's a general prohibition against wine in general, it only applies to actual wine in its intact, visible form. Hanoider min hayayin makes an eder against wine. Mutar b'tavshu sheyesh bo tam yayin. He can drink, he can partake in a dish which happens to contain some wine flavor. It's not actual wine intact. But amar koinim yayin zeh shani toim. He points to a specific bottle of wine. This wine for me is off limits. And then v'nafal tavshel. It gets poured into some other dish. Now you have to discern whether that wine, which became a chaticha d'isur, is discernible, is detectable. There's enough there to actually contribute a discernible flavor in the new item. Here's the asur, it makes it asur. So bottom line is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, any neder against anything includes its derivatives and extractions and flavors. That's all part of the das, the mindset of a person making that neder. Whereas according to Chachamim, it all depends. If you point it to a specific item, this thing is asur to me, then yes, in fact, it includes all its derivatives, all its flavors, in all its variations, provided that we have a discernible flavor in that new food. But otherwise, it's only the actual thing intact, which is asur, but nothing else. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah with the chalav and the kum. Another against chalav. What does it include? Milk, certainly. What about whey? What about this watery runoff? Tanakama says not included. Rabbi Yossi says it is included, because presumably because it's derived. It comes from the father source, the actual milk. V'raminu have a kasha on Rabbi Yossi. A fellow makes a neder, min adashim, no lentils for me. Asur ba'ashishim. Not only can't he eat lentils, even ashishim, which are honey-coated lentils, are asur to him as well. And this is Shitas Rabbanon. They hold that, although when it comes to whey, it's not chalav, so it's not asur. But ashishim, well, lentils, covered or uncovered, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, so it's asur. Rabbi Yossi Mater, he disagrees. It takes on a new form, a life of its own. It's no longer considered the original adashim, and it's mutter. And here in the Mishnah, he tells us that kum is included in the prohibition against milk. What's the difference? This is taken from that, and that's taken from that. So what's the difference between ashishim from adashim, which are mutter, and kum from chala, which is asur? Like kasha, the answer is like this. It's all a matter of terminology. It's all a matter of common way of expressions. Marki asrei, umarki asrei. Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi are both consistent with the mode of expression in their respective communities. That's what Nedarim are all about. It's based on Lashon Bnei Adam. So perhaps you can't really think too much into this, because ba'asrei the Rabbanon, in Rabbanon's place, karu l'chalava chalava. So chalava, milk was called chalava, ulekuma kuma, and whey was called whey. no connection. And therefore the Isser against Chalav excludes Kuma, which is a different entity, referred to by its own name. In contrast to Ba'asr Rabbi Yesi, where Rabbi Yesi lived, it was all one and the same. Lukuma nami, karalei kuma de chalava. Kuma was referred to kuma of milk. So related to its father's source, and therefore the neder against chalav includes kuma as well. Says the Brisa. Tanya hanoidim min chalav mutar bekum. Right? The neder against chalav does not include kum. Minakum, a neder against kum does not include milk. Mutar b'chalav. This is Tanakama, of course. Mina chalav mutar b'gvina. Here's one more aspect not mentioned yet. This is the neder against chalav does not include cheese, which is an entirely new entity. Likewise, mina gvina mutar b'chalav, mina roita mutar b'kifa. A neder on gravy does not include kifa, the stringy, fibery meat residue. Mina kifa mutar b'roitiv. Likewise, a neder against kifa does not include roitiv. But im amar basar ze alai, if he specifies this piece of meat is asur to me, it includes everything that's related to that piece of meat. Asur boy ube roitfai ube kifa. Likewise, when it comes to wine, it all depends on your expression. Hanoidim en hayayin, he makes a general neder against wine in general. It only includes actual wine. Mutar b'tavshul sheish b'tam yayin. He can partake in a food which happens to contain a wine flavor. He doesn't like wine as they drink wine, but wine flavor is okay with him. Amar koinim yayin zeh sheini toim. But if he makes a neder against this specific bottle of wine, v'nafal techal tavshul, that sort of ended inside a tavshul, then it depends whether you can discern and detect that wine, because that wine to him is usher in all its forms. Im yesh by tam yayin harei usher. If the tafshil contains a detectable wine flavor, so the wine portion in it is a 60th or more, right? So it's not batal b'shishim. So when it's more than a 60th, it's discernible. It's not batal, therefore it is asur. Continues the Mishnah. Hanoidim min hanavim. Now we're going to learn about extractions. He made a neder against grapes, and it was converted into wine. So you've lost that original item, and now it took on a new form, a new life. Mutar b'yayin, he's allowed to drink wine. Why? Because he didn't point to this specific grape and make it asur. A general prohibition against anavim does not include wine, which is a new substance. Another example, min hazeisim mutar b'shemen, a neder against olives does not include olive oil. But if he specifies, if he makes it personal, he makes it object-oriented, Omar koinim zeisim anavim elu, these olives or grapes are asur to me she'eni toyim, in that case, it is asur all throughout, in any which way or form. Asur behen ubeyetzim hen, just as he can't actually partake in those fruits, likewise in their derivatives, in these liquids, which are generated from these fruits. Now it's interesting that the Mishnah puts together two expressions here. He said, "Koinem zeisim anavim elu," these she'eni toyim, which I will not taste. Which one is primary? Which one is necessary? Which lashon does the trick? Boy Romi Barchama. When we speak about yotze, derivatives, juice produced from a fruit, when does this happen? If he says elu, is that dafka? Is that the main point? That he adds the word elu to the neder, which includes anything coming from this thing? Oy she'eni toyim dafka. Or is it the word she'eni toyim, which makes it all-encompassing? Isakadaydach elu dafka. Now, if you'll suggest that elu is the pivotal expression, so then why did the Mishnah have to add she'eni toyim lamali? Why would we have to add the words she'eni toyim, which are unnecessary? The answer is it's a chiddush. Hakum ashmon. The Mishnah is merely teaching to us the afik of the Omar she'eni toyim, which is telling us that even if he added she'eni toyim, that's not the trigger point. You need to say elu. Ida Omar elu mitzer. If he makes sure to add the word elu, then it includes the derivatives. Viloi, but without the word elu, loy, it doesn't work. So elu is the crucial expression. This item, which includes any derivatives coming forth. So it was Elu Dafka or She'ene Toyim Dafka. Amar Rav Tashma, I have a simple raya from a Mishnah. The Mishnah later on, Daf Nun Zayin, tells us, Koinam Peiros Elu Alai, making a neder against these fruits. Koinam En Lefi, another expression. In this case we say, not only is the fruit asur, but asur bichilu feihen ubigidulehen, he may not partake in anything that was exchanged for this fruit, or anything that grew from this fruit. Why did the Mishnah specifically single out exchanges or growths? What happened to extractions like juice? Why did we ignore that? Oh, apparently, we see from here, biyotzim hen mutter, that fruit produced from juice produced from this fruit would not be asur, because he merely said ha'elu, which is not sufficient to include any juice produced, unless you say she'eni toim, which includes any form of tasting. So right from here, that which expression is crucial? Which expression does the trick? She'eni toim, because in this Mishnah he merely said ha'elu, and therefore it does not include extractions. We see it from the fact that the Mishnah omitted it. Apparently it's mutter. No, says the Gemara. Perhaps even juice extracted would be asur. Why did the Mishnah leave it out? You would think that the Mishnah is looking for the biggest chiddush. And extractions, which is a disfigured, transformed item, is an even greater chiddush if it would be asur. Even greater chiddush than an exchange, where you're actually exchanging the fruit intact. It's not being converted and changing its form. So perhaps yotzim hen is even a greater chiddush, which the Mishnah should have cited if indeed it would be asur. The Mishnah's omission indicates that it's mutter. No, says the Gemara. Hu adin afilu biyotzim hen asur. The fact that he said elu would have us include the extractions as well, such as juice. V'ha'adifa leilashminan tichilufein kigedulein dami. And the Mishnah actually chose a greater chiddush. So the Gemara at this point figures, instead of yotzim hen being a greater chiddush, which should have prompted the Mishnah to discuss that, no. Actually, chilufen is a bigger chiddush. What is a chiluf? It's an exchange. Nothing to do with the original item. That's a bigger chiddush. Something gotten in exchange for the original item is asur. Wow, that's a big chiddush. A bigger chiddush than juice which is extracted, which is actually derived from that item. So perhaps yotzim hen is asur as well. The Mishnah simply picked a greater chiddush, assuming you'd figure that if chilufen are asur, of course, something which is yotzeh from the actual item is asur as well. So basically we have no raya, one way or the other. Perhaps it is included in the Isser, perhaps it's not. We have no raya. Tashma, here comes another raya from that Mishnah itself. He says, she'eni oichel, she'eni toyim, no eating, no tasting that fruit. Mutar b'chilufeihen, ubigdolei. In this case, since he didn't specify elu makes it like, hegdish, which includes any exchanges or anything growing from it. But just simply, a neder she'eni oichel, she'eni toyim, it's not so severe. And therefore, it does not include chilufen or gedulin. Apparently, says the Gemara, chilufen and gedulin are not included. But hoha yotzim hen asur. The fact that the Mishnah did not mention anything about yotzeh would indicate that extractions, juice produced from this type of fruit, would be asur. Why? Because he said she'eni oichel, she'eni toim, any form of tasting or eating is asur. So this additional expression, adding this expression she'eni oichel, she'eni toim on top of the regular standard neder format, includes yotzeh. So perhaps this proves our point. She'eni toim is the pivotal expression which has us include the yotzeh. Says the Gemara, no. Perhaps yotzeh would be mutter as well, because she'eni oichel, she'eni toim would not add the yotzeh. Only the fruit, the way it is intact, but not a yotzeh. Why did the Mishnah ignore this case? Not to say that it's asur, but it's just, using matching a form of expression to the Reisha. I did the Lenasab Reisha Yotzim Hen, just as in the Reisha we did not discuss Yotzim Hen for the reason we mentioned before. Lenasab Navi B'Seifo Yotzim Hen. Likewise, in the second part of the Mishnah we sort of omitted this, but don't take any lessons. It wasn't meant to send us any messages. Tashma, here comes another raya from our Mishnah, which discusses, guess what? Yotzei. In the case of the eggs cooked together with the meat, that's yotzei. You have flavor extracted from the meat into the eggs. I have a first-hand story. Rabbi Tarfon applied Isser to the eggs due to the flavor that they absorb from that meat. And the Chacham explained, when does that apply? When he specifies this meat is Asr to me, instead of a general prohibition against meat in general, it was a specific one against this piece of meat. Because indeed, when you make an eder on something and it gets mixed in, and contributes flavor to the other item, Hariza Asr. Oh, that's a clarity. That's conclusion. Why? Because he said Basar Zeh, which is like Elu. He specifies this thing. That includes flavoring, includes extractions. So you see that Elu is enough. You don't need, Shani Toyim to include Yotzei. Responds the Gemara, you're right. We never have a Shaila. There was no question that Elu would work. We see that from the Mishnah, as you have just proven to us. So going forward, we have no Shaila about Elu. The Davkahu. Elu is certainly specific, meaning Elu is a standalone expression and includes Yotzei. The question still remaining is, Kikami Boilan. The question that we have is, B'She'eni Toyim. Suppose he only says She'eni Toyim and not Elu. Dafka, I love Dafka. Can it stand alone? She'eni Toyim independent of Elu. That's sufficient to make Isra on the Yotzei or not? Tashma, I have another raya from the previous Mishnah. Dogim She'eni Toyim. He makes an eder against all types of fish. What's included? Actual fish. Asr behen being doilim, being tanim, right? Ben chayim, ben mushalim, cooked, uncooked. Umuta b'taris terufa, but he can partake in ground fish. Ubit sir, and in all forms of fish, juice or brine. What do we see? Although he said she'eni toyim, it does not incorporate juices or extractions. That's a riot. That doesn't work. Amarava, no riot from there. Ukvar yatsa mehen. You know what that Mishnah is speaking about? Perhaps that the juice or brine has left the fish prior to him making his neder. And in that case, even if he gets up and says, I will not taste fish, it doesn't include something which was extracted from this fish prior to that neder. You see, by saying this fish, or by saying, I will not taste fish, perhaps it includes not only the actual, meat of the fish, or the actual piece of meat, or the actual grape, or olive, etc., but also its derivatives, flavors extracted, juices, gravies, etc., which will be derived from this item going forward. But something which is already sitting there, you have gravy had already dripped out of that meat before the neder. According to Shittas Chachamim, that will not be included in the neder. Because remember, the Ran explained to us, what's the advantage of saying zeh, or saying elu, or saying, she'eni toyim? You're turning this thing into a chaticha d'isur. You're not limiting the neder to one form of consumption, the way it's actually meant to be consumed in its original intact form. You're including all forms of partaking, all forms of consuming this item, whether in its solid form, its liquid form, in its original form, its derivative form. But that only works going forward. Anything taken from this asur item going forward is included. But something which was already taken before, that was never included in the neder. Okay, let's do a quick chazara. What do we learn today? we spoke about the neder from chalav. Does it include kum or not? Well, it depends on your neighborhood. According to the Chachamim, it does not include the kum because that's the way they spoke in that neighborhood. According to Rabbi Yossi, it does because in his place it was referred to as kuma de chalava. A neder against kum, according to the Gersa and Al Mishnah, does not include chalav, according to all shittais. A neder against gevina includes all types of cheeses, salted and unsalted. Now, we have three different types of nedarim. We have the neder against the item itself. So the item itself is certainly us. What about if the item got mixed into something else? A taroibis. You made a neder against wine, and that wine got dunked into a dish. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, a neder includes even tam. And therefore, if you can discern the wine flavor in that dish, it's us. According to Chachamim, a general neder against wine in general does not include derivatives or flavors. Unless it's intact, it's mutter. But if he says, koinem yain zeh, or he says shani tayim, that extra expression includes even tam. Third category, yoitze, something extracted. So we change forms. We have grapes turned into wine, olives into oil, milk, meat gravy. So these are called yoitze. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's all included. When you make a neder against basar, it includes all forms of basar and all variations of tam basar as well. And here's the chiddush. It sounds like from Taisvis that even if the roitiv, the gravy, was produced prior to the neder, it's also included in his neder. Whereas according to Chachamim, a general prohibition against basar in general does not include all these derivations and extractions. But if he says zeh or elu, it does include anything taken from that item going forward. Regarding shani taim, left it unresolved, and the Ran brings that we go the chumrah as we do typically when it's an issa deraisa, safek deraisa l'chumrah. May we all have much hatzlacha and see ata d'shmaya.